much. And I want to read a fax that just rolled in while we were just doing that last pack. Dear Mr. Manson, this is from Julie and Brittany in Richmond Hill, Ontario. You seem quite intelligent when being interviewed. Does it occur to you that by promoting self-mutilation, you're giving the message to millions of fans that harming themselves is a cool thing to do? And just before you respond to that, I want to play a quick piece of tape. We were at your in-store appearance at a record store downtown, and we took the opportunity to ask some of your fans about specific issues that come up, and self-mutilation was one of them. So this is fan responses to the question of self-mutilation. Let's roll that.
It doesn't really do anything for me, but whatever people like, they can do. I think it's just people looking for something different.
Self-mutilation, I view people should, if they're into that, they should not do it because Mr. Manson does it or Marilyn Manson does it. I think it's something that if you're into it, do it.
I personally do not find anything appealing about self-mutilation. I mean, I think that people who have piercings look cool and everything, but just to me personally, it does not appeal to me. I don't like to hurt myself, so.
Self-mutilation? I think it's unoffensive.
It's cool. They're the band, not me. They can do whatever they want. They're the band, not me. That's cool.
They're the band, not me. Well, you have the explicit permission of a very young kid to do whatever you want, so I'm sure you're thrilled about that.
Well, that's, it's almost an outdated subject for me. It was something that I was very much into a year ago, but not so much into anymore. But for me, it was an expression of, maybe me trying to relate to the audience what lyrically I was trying to express pain-wise, physically. And it was kind of ritualistic, but it's not something that I do now. But that's not to say that I regret it or am against it. It was just where I was at a year ago.
So it's about externalizing your pain? It's about taking it back?
And I mean, it's actually a very Christian ritual. If you look back in history, it was something, flailing and self-mutilation was something that people used to do to repent for their sins. So
they didn't really have rock stars, though.
They have to actually blame the Christians for that.
They didn't have rock stars then that they idolized in that same way.
No, but they had a guy on a cross who was very similar.
Kind of rock starish.
I'd like to respond to the idea put forth that people who do take an interest in things like self-mutilation or the different practices that Marilyn Manson exposes people to through his videos are somehow drowning, or you're throwing them an anchor. I mean, to me, people who do express themselves in this way are a lot less likely to drown than people who are sitting back repressed who don't talk about it. And I think that we live in a big city, and it's easy to forget the people in small towns who may be dressed like this or explore these type of things are actually taking a pretty big risk in their own communities. And I don't think they should be called drowning people. I think they're probably going to be a lot more healthy.
Tim, you want a chance to respond to that?
Sure. I spent a couple hours down here before I came down and talking to some people out in the crowd, but some of the kids I work with over on Yonge Street and stuff, we got 12 and 13-year-olds on the street who take you almost as their role model because their parents have messed them over. And I know you understand it because that's part of your message. But I think that a lot of what happens with your fans and you're going platinum with your music and stuff like this, they don't understand the satanic message. They think it's gimmicky, but I can tell from reading through it and from Little Horn, The Man You Fear, the satanic references that come through that speak strong. It's not a gimmick, is it? That's really who you are.
Well, I mean, Satanism is only one element of what I'm about. I like philosophy, and Satanism is an interesting philosophy because it's about self-preservation and individuality. The word Satan, is a rebellion against society, but...
In your life, is there an opportunity for salvation? I cling to my salvation pretty intensely. Do you understand salvation?
That's what my whole record's about, what I struggled through, and I think the answer in the end is your only salvation is yourself. And that was my answer at the end.
Your only salvation is yourself. I got to get back here because there's people who are desperate to speak. All right, into the crowd here. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is this. Since you've not only capitalized but also discovered society's fears, what are your fears? And perhaps are they being right here, right now? Is this a fear to you, being discovered, people understanding you, or is this what you want? What are your fears?
With fear, I've always, when I've been afraid of something, I do it, so I'm not afraid of it anymore. And I think now the only fear I have is of failure, so I try my best to succeed at what I do and do the best at what I do.
So I thought you were trying to do your fears, so if your fear is failure, you want to fail then.
Well, no, I attack my fears, so if I'm afraid of something, I'm not.
Attacking failure. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's been established that self-mutilation is an externalization of pain, and that was a fad for you. Now, I assume a recovering goth. I'm not a goth anymore, just like the gentleman over here. And I understand the self-mutilation thing as being a fad, just as me being a goth was also externalization of my pain. And so that was just a fad. I still have pain inside, but I take it out on other people in different ways. Instead of shocking, I'll infiltrate them mentally. I won't shock them with my appearance, and I won't shock them by ripping myself apart.
Well, the important thing is that you're expressing your emotions, and that's what I was doing at the time, and that's what you're doing now. And everybody has to find a different way, a different outlet to express what's in them. And some people have music, some people have different ways, So you find a different way, and that's great.
You've got a response to this.
I guess when you're showing young people who, you're showing them that this is the only way, though, and I'm wondering, you said it's important to externalize and to talk about what's going on in your body, and I agree with that, but what other messages are you giving people about other outlets, other than cutting yourself?
Well, I've never told anybody that was what was, and I've never made a video of cutting myself or anything of that nature, but my point has always been to express yourself, the bottom line, to ask questions, to be creative, to think, to do something more and above just rock and roll.
I'm going to grab another response over here. Go ahead.
Well, I just think that if you're talking about why isn't he presenting all these other outlets for expression, why should he? He's his own artist. He's his own person. His responsibility to himself. There's plenty of other artists out there who are expressing other views. He's the one who's showing us something different or something aside from what we see most of the time on Much Music. So why should he show us other outlets?
All right. Well, I had a feeling that might generate a little response. And I just want to shift things. To a slightly different angle here, because my response, my personal response, the only thing that troubles me is references to fascism and fascist imagery in your video, which some people may catch depending on their level of sensitivity, and some of the things you say about society not having any obligation to take care of the weak. And you have a lot of impatience around people who are weak, however you define that.
Well,
and at the same time, you take no responsibility for how people react to your music. But you're messing with really potent ideas that have killed a lot of people in this century or this decade, this year.
The thing is, and not to speak for Canada, but America is very fascist. But it disguises that in the idea of MTV and the idea of commerciality. And they're very much telling you what you want and what you don't want. And the idea of individuality is a farce. So I've made a point to show to people, almost cynically, the relationship between music and fascism, how it's almost totalitarian. But I've never at any point promoted fascism. I'm making a statement at it.
It's funny because you have so many layers of distance from your thing. I mean, you attribute it to a character, or you say this is about everyone, not just me, or everyone has to take their own message from it. It's like you're really ducking any personal responsibility for how people react to your music.
But I'm very personally involved in all of it, so I'm not ducking any of it. I'm very much a part of it.
But with the way people that respond to your music is, I mean, if you're Hootie and the Blowfish, for instance, who have not come up tonight, and I don't know why that is so far. They don't take responsibility but they're sort of mainstream rock stars. But you are someone who calls himself a reverend and preaches to people, and yet you still don't want a responsibility when people get the wrong take on your message.
Well, that's just as ridiculous as saying, should I blame Hootie and the Blowfish for making my life completely boring?
Now, when you're upset or something like that, you take a phone call. Russ is on the line from Calgary.
Water.
Russ, talk to me.
Hey.
Hi, Russ.
How's it going?
What's up?
I just want to tell Marilyn Manson that he really rocks, and that I'm glad that he's teaching us young adolescents to go for individualism, not to follow what others think.
Thank you.
I'm right into Marilyn Manson because I can relate to a lot of his music. He deals with a lot of social issues that I've been involved in. There's a song on Lunchbox, I want to grow up, I want to be the biggest rock and roll star so no one beeps with me. Well, when I was going to school and like that, I wasn't into with the jocks and stuff. I was the metalhead by myself. Anyway, I had dreams of being a rock star and getting into the bands and stuff like that. You know, and all the jocks would stand back, the f***ing wimp, whatever. You know, and the song that he sings on, Lunchbox, I can really relate to him. Like, oh, this guy's cool, man. So I checked into it more, and I'm like, what's with all the controversy around this Marilyn Manson stuff, about the self-mutilation, self-expression, and stuff like that. I went through that last year too. You know, my body is my temple, and I went to get into a fight last year. So I said, well, you're not gonna hurt me, and I hurt myself. And it freaked him out, and it sent him off. He's like, you're nuts, you know, and I almost hurt myself in the process, but at the same time, I dealt with my inner side, you know, and expressed myself, leave me the frig alone, you know, and stuff like that. And, you know, hearing that he's into mutilation, stuff like that, it, you know, definitely shows a lot of expression and stuff, and it does get the release out.
I gotta get that phone call, hang on. Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
I'm nervous. Well, I see society as being a really complicated and many times a very ugly thing, and you've got people that like to run away from their fears by, you know, running up the corporate ladder and joining the establishment, and then you've got other people that, you know, maybe dress like myself who are trying to sort of encounter their demons and become better people that way. And in music, you know, it's a similar situation where you've got a lot of bands coming out in t-shirts and smiling, playing jangly music, and that's great, but they're, you know, maybe avoiding their fears, whereas here you've got somebody who's facing up to the dark things that are definitely reality and not being afraid to reflect that.
Yeah. Can I just respond to that? You know what, you can, but as soon as we come back from commercial, because unfortunately we got to pay the bills. But we'll be right back on Too Much for Much. This is starting to get hot.
I got him there with the hoodie and the blood face getting out of that.
Listen carefully.
Hi, my name's Justin. I'm 18 years old. I am a fan of Marilyn Manson, but it seems to me that ever since a couple months ago, they came out with Sweet Dreams, and everybody loves them, including little boys and girls, little kids. I don't have a big problem with that. My concern is that Marilyn Manson isn't the kind of person that kids would want to grow up with that kind of a role model. So if you're a parent and your kid is listening to Marilyn Manson, maybe you should have a talk with him or her. He's pro-drugs, no safe sex. It's just a bad idea, and it kind of worries me. I'm 18 years old. I know what I'm listening to. I don't agree with it. I respect them as musicians, but I don't respect them as people.
We hitchhiked from Aurelia just to see Marilyn Manson. Yeah, and we're gonna meet him today.